Yeah. Now let's say I have, okay, I'll come back to this again when we deal with the date functions, because there is something to do with Fridays and Mondays kind of stuff, right? Though we have to do the average if kind of features itself, right? But there are dates, weekdays kind of stuff. So once we do the date formulas after the arithmetic, we'll do the date formulas itself. So once we do the date formulas, we'll again come back to address this question, right? Because there is a Monday and a Friday. So I'll highlight this so that we'll come back and address this question. Now I will create a couple of more. What is the maximum and minimum turnovers in the last year? Just want the highest and the lowest values, and find the top 10 and bottom 10 daily returns, which we have started off with that question. Right now, using the formulas, I'll how will I get that same flavor? Top 10 and bottom 10, and a few more formulas relating to rounding and ceiling. I'll come back to that. Okay, so as a part of our requirement, I want to find out the maximum and minimum turnovers. So there are couple of formulas: max and min. Max will give me the highest value and min will give me the lowest. So I'll simply say equal to max. Whatever the column or whatever the range in which I want to find the maximum, because I want to find out the maximum turnover, I'll give it on the F column. So the maximum turnover for me is this much, 2,28,490. Again, for what, how, on what day, for which share, that is not there. Only the value will be given. Same way I can get the minimum. There are other ways to get which company share on what day. There are other ways of getting them. We'll try to fill them, right? But they require the usage of other formulas, right? So as a part of only the arithmetic formulas, we can only get the values. Similarly, the minimum turnover equal to min. Again the same impact. I'll do it on the F column. So the minimum turnover in the day was only 54 lakhs. So this probably on one day there's no trading much, only a very minimum value on that particular day. But this max and min, they simply give only the highest and the lowest. But sometimes we may be interested not just in the highest, but like top 10. Right? Max and min cannot give that kind of a top 10 flavor for us. So for that there are two other formulas, large and small. Large will give me the nth largest, first largest, second largest. So first largest is nothing but max. First smallest is nothing but min. But it can even give me the second largest, second smallest, third largest, fourth largest kind of stuff. So that is what can be used to actually obtain our top 10 and bottom 10 in the data. So let me go back to the sheet 2, right, where we have actually used this top 10, bottom 10. Probably I'll write it as top. Let me write it as 1, 2. Okay, only 9. I'll create one more, probably top 10. I want to display, because as a part of arithmetic functions only the value can be displayed. The other two I will fill slightly later when we are dealing with some reference based functions. Right, for time being we'll have to fill the values column here, where I'll pull out the top 10 values. So as I said, a large is a formula which will pull out the top 10, right? Yeah, I'll say large equal to large. Sorry, I'll say equal to large, shift F3. It's asking for two things: array, in which one you would like to pull out the largest, large and second largest kind of stuff, and k is the kth largest, first largest. If I write 1, it will give me the first largest in that array. If I write 5, it will give me the fifth largest, something like that, right? So the array for me will be, I'll go into sheet 1 and select the G column. So it has to write in my array sheet 1 hyphen G colon G. That's what has to be written, because it is written in the, I'm pulling the data from some other sheet, not from the local sheet. My formula is in sheet 2, but my input is in sheet 1. In those cases, what happens is that the sheet name will be referenced. So sheet 1 exclamation the G column. Now because I want the first largest, I'll write 1. I want the first largest, I am writing 1, where the value comes out as 9.8%. That's the highest value, which we got even through sorting, even through various other features also. We have got that the largest is 9.8% itself. Sorry? Now, the real problem is, now I want the 10 elements. So probably I have to write the same large here, here, here in all the 10 locations. I have to write the same large formula. This is where the copying of the formula comes more and more handy. Write once and copy the formula. But here, how this formula copy works is, let's say I drag it. I hold it on the bottom right corner and I drag it. The problem is, here the formula got copied. In all the cells the formula got copied. But all of them are showing the same number, top one. All are top ones itself, the largest, first largest. The reason being, in all of them, the formula is being shown as 1. Whereas it has to be made 2, 3, 4. Okay, just to experiment, I will make it as 2. I will get 9.72%, which is the second largest. But if there are 20 such things to be done, I cannot go and make 1, 2, 3, 4 changes across. Now that's where a concept of cell referencing comes into picture. The way the cell referencing happens is, whichever field you think is varying, whichever cell you think should vary, now here 1 has to be replaced with 2, 2 has to be replaced with 3, and so on, right? So when you are copying the formula, you want that particular cell to keep changing, right? Wherever something has to be changing, it's better not to write that in the formula as explicitly coded text. See, we know that 1 will change to 2, 2 will change to 3. Has to be changed. Or even in our earlier examples, even in the examples here, we have written the rules in the formula. Greater than or equal to 5%. What if someone asks me for 4%, 3%? Every time I have to go and make a change in the formula. Sometimes what happens is, if someone tampers with the formula a little bit, these are looking like very, very small formulas. But the more and more comfortable you get with Excel, you will observe that you are writing formulas which will go for few lines, not few words. So if you are giving your Excel sheet to someone and by mistake something is tampered just because of finger on the keyboard or something, the whole application is impacted. That's the biggest drawback with Excel. It will not show an error, it will do a calculation, but it will give some other answer. Right? So in those cases, what sophisticated Excel users do is they completely hide the formulas. It doesn't mean that you can't work with it, but you can't tamper my formula. And also, as a good practice, anything which we think will be changing, instead of 5%, I may have to change it to 4%. So anything I think will be changing, it's better to write that value not in the formula but in some cell. In some cell, instead of writing this greater than 5% in the formula here, I will write it in some cell here. Here I have already written. Anywhere you write it in some cell. The same flavor, greater than 5%. Instead of writing it in the formula, you write it as in a cell. Now, how my formula will get modified? I'll just go here and edit my formula. Instead of writing it as greater than or equal to 5% there, I'll simply point it to this. It's the same, greater than 5%. I'll simply point it to this value. The advantage I get with this is two things. Now, when I want to change this from 5% to 3%, you see here the numbers are 65 right now. I change it to greater than 3%, the number becomes 258 there. So I am not editing in the formula at all. 1. 2. The same greater than 5% may be used in 10 different formulas. Probably I might have used it in sum if, I might have used it in count if, just giving an example. Right? And at all of them, if I have to change them to 5%, I have to make 10 different changes. I need to know where all I have used 3%. In all those formulas, I have to go and change them to 5% to get my new output. Rather than that, if I have maintained it somewhere else, and in all formulas I point only to that location, the moment I change it at one place, all formulas are updated. So, as a good practice, what Excel suggests is, anything which is a constant, don't type it into the formula. Excel has so much of space. You try to write, if you see here, that less than 30 lakhs. Don't write it in the formula. Write it in some cell. Because tomorrow if someone wants less than 20 lakhs, or if the rule changes to greater than 50 lakhs, probably you should be able to just change quickly. And as I said, I'll hide the formulas. If I am a sophisticated Excel user, no one can tamper that. Or I'll even make it no one can even see that. You give the input, you will get the output. But you will not know how I have got that. So you change it to 20,000, 30,000, 50,000, whatever you want. You will get 258, 300, whatever the numbers. But you don't know how I have got that. That makes a differentiation between a powerful Excel user to a normal Excel user. The reason being, in Excel, formula is the heart. Right? The moment the other person, if you are doing a big consulting assignment in Excel, or for that matter, any big task in Excel, the moment the other person knows your formula, probably your competitive advantage is lost. Right? I mean, lots and lots of, sometimes people write lines and lines of formulas. The moment if someone else knows how you have got this output, I mean, he can copy it and you are not required anymore for the next time, at least for executing that task. So what typically happens is people get into the hiding of the formulas process. I'll show you how to do that. So in that process, if everything is there, whatever has to be changed, at least whatever that requires a change, if you visualize that no, this number can be changed at some point, write it as a part of some cell value and refer that cell. Instead of writing it in the formula, do it in the cell. Now in that cell you can put that value instead of that formula. In the condition also you can put that cell. The reason why I stressed it again here is, here also I want this 1 to become 2, 2 to become 3 and so on. Even while copying the formula, the cell referencing will help. One, you can change the values just at the cell level instead of changing it at a formula level, which will give flexibility. And at one point changing, it will be affected in multiple formulas without you trying to remember in how many formulas I have used that greater than 5%. 3, the most advantageous part is the copying of the formula. Now here when I dragged this formula, initially it was showing all 9.8s only. But the moment instead of 1 like this, instead of typing in 1 here, if I point to this cell, I have already typed 1 to 10 there. Instead of typing 1 here, if I point to that A3, which is also 1 only, instead of typing the constant in the formula, I have just pointed it to a cell which contains 1. Same answer. Answer is not changing. But now try dragging it. You will get top 10. The reason being, any formula copy in Excel, typically that happens with a drag. The way it happens is, one formula, whatever you have written, look at the inputs. Some G column is there, some A3 is there. What happens is when you are dragging it down, the input positions also will move accordingly, automatically. There is an auto increment in the numbers. The 3 will automatically become 4. Not the number, the cell position. A3 is there, it will automatically become A4. When you are dragging any formula down, if you are dragging the formula one cell down, all the row numbers which are there as input in the formula, they are automatically incremented. So here there is only one row number here. Here there is no row number for G because we have selected the entire column. But for A there is A3. So A3 directly becomes A4. If it becomes A4, it means top 2. The second largest value to be obtained. Then it becomes A5. The moment you come here, you see A4, A5. So the input is becoming A5, which is 3. So which means it is directly pulling out the third largest value and displaying for us. So first largest, second largest, third largest, it is directly displaying all the top 10 values for us. If there is a repetition also, it will give the repetitions itself. Even if both of them are at 8.09, 8th position as well as 9th position will be there with 8.09. This is what. Let's change it. Let's let me change. Okay, let me change to 8.5%. Both of them. There are two values, 6 and 7 with 8.5%. It's an automatic increment. Uh, those things we have to set additional rules. Because the formula of large or small, they only pull out the additional values. I'll give you some other mechanisms in case of setting priorities, right? But the default formulas of large and small, they simply pull out the value, right? Then similarly, if I want the bottom 10, the good thing about this formula is it is dynamic. So I'll say bottom, date, symbol, and value. So here also I'll write it as 1 to 10. Right, values will come through a small function. Array will be the same G column. In K, instead of writing 1, I'll point it to this cell so that I can drag it down. When I drag it down, the cell location also, all the input cell locations will move accordingly. I've dragged it down. Probably I can change the format of them to percentage into 2 decimals, something. I'll change it into a percentage format. I can even increase the decimal. So they are more for my look and feel. Inside they are still stored as minus 0.09.083333. That's the way they are stored. So for all calculation purposes, they still go with minus 0.08333 kind of stuff itself. Only for my presentation purpose, they are showing as percentage with minus 8.33% kind of stuff. Right? So the values, I mean, getting the date and the symbol, we'll look at other ways of getting them. Right? We have to use a couple of other formulas there. Right? We may have to depend on formulas like index, match, and all those things to get the date and the symbol for it. Because we are in the arithmetic functions, we are focusing only right now on getting the values, which are the top 10 and the bottom 10 values. All right. Now, a couple of more arithmetic formulas here. Yeah, we just talked about an example of 12.25. If I have to make it an integer, formatting is not solving the problem. It's not a permanent change, right? I simply decrease the decimals. I simply decrease the decimal to this. If I'm multiplying it with 4 or something equal to this number multiplied by 4, I'm still getting 49. So which means the data is not truncated, the data is not rounded off. Only for look and feel it is rounded, but it's not a permanent round. This becomes a very big problem, especially when large volumes of data is added or multiplied. We see that the individual data elements, let's say 1.1. 1.1, there are 10 1.1s. I'm adding them up. I'll get 11, but I have done the formatting of them and all of them are looking ones. I'm expecting that the answer should come as 10, but why 11? So sometimes the impact will be very large also. Right? And so in those cases, if I have to make it permanent, you have to do a rounding off using a formula. So for that we have a formula called round. Actually we have round, round up and round down also. So rounding is more like to the nearest, either to 12 or 13, depending on whether it is More than 50% or less than 50%? So I'll say equal to round. The number is still, so the number and number of digits after the decimal point. So the number is this one, 12.25. It is still 12.25 only. It's not 12. The number is this one. How many digits you want after the decimal point? I want to round it to the integer. So 0 digits after the decimal point. Integer is more like 0 digits after the decimal point. So I'll put a 0 here. Now what happens is I'll get a value as 12. This 12 is a permanent 12. It's not a an what you call, it's not a alignment, or it's not a formatted 12. It's an actual 12. It's not presentation, it's the actual value itself. Just try out this number multiplied by 4. You'll get only 48. So if you want to really truncate the number, you have to depend on round. Sometimes this round you may have to do it to up. Always, if even if it is 12.25, make it 13, the highest side. Then you use round up. Even if it is 12.9, make it 12, the lower side. Then you do a round down. But if you have to be logical, either to 12 or to 13, then you use round. The difference between the three is like that. No, if you use round up, if you are using round, Excel will decide whether it has to go to 12 or to 13. But if you are using round up, it will definitely go to 13 only. The number is this one, 0 digits after the decimal point. It will definitely go to 13 only. Round down will take it to 12 only. But if it is round, yeah, it can go to up or down depending on to which one it is closer. If it is closer to 12 or to 13, the round will take it there. Now sometimes on this itself, people talk about round this to the nearest 1000. Numbers are 28,680. Right, I'll call it as round the turnovers to the nearest 1000. Not integer here. We are talking of nearest thousands. Right, probably instead of saying 28,600, write it as 29,000. Right, so that I will remove all the thousands and I'll simply write it as 29 later. See, sometimes we get it right, even in the money, they say rounded off to the nearest 100, nearest 1000. Or probably even if it is even for a top management reporting, 35 lakhs for 45,000 something is the number. We'll simply say 35 lakhs. Some kind of rounding is done at different layers. So if I have to do such kind of rounding in my data, not just the digit or a decimal, not integer or decimal, but if I want it to the nearest thousands or something like that, then also I can use the round formula. Like, I'll try to write it here in the H column, or probably let me insert one more column. Rounded. Here also I can use this, another application of round, not just rounding to the integer or right. It's even for rounding up to the nearest tens, nearest hundreds, nearest thousands, whatever it is. Even that also works exactly in the same way. The number here I want to round this number. I want to round this number. So for each one, see, once I do it, I will drag it. Because it's a cell value, I can drag it and the formula gets copied for everything. So I'm taking this number. I want to round it to the nearest 1000. The whole beauty comes in the number of digits. 0 is integer. 1 means 1 digit after the decimal point. Like this number will become 23244.6. That is 1 digit after the decimal. 2 digits after the decimal means it becomes 0.61. Something like that. But if I want it before the decimal, I'll write it as -1, -2, -3. -1 means it rounds to the nearest 10. Like this value 23,244 will be either 240 or 250 to the nearest 10. 240 or 250. If it is like nearest 100, where I have tried -2. If I write -2 in number of digits, it will round to nearest 100. So it will become either 200 or 300. Right? It will become 244. It will be rounded either to 200 or to 300. And similarly, if I write -3, it will be rounded to the nearest 1000. 3,244 will become either 3000 or 4000, depending on which one it is closer to. So here, if just to see, if I write -3 here, you are getting the answer as, okay, the percentage format, you remove the percentage format, you make it as a general format. You see, you will get it as 23,000. Now you simply drag this out. You will get 48,000, 69,000. All are coming only in terms of thousands. Right? And probably in the same formula, you divide it by 1000. You divide this by 1000. You'll get simple numbers. Instead of showing so much of big number, it will show only simple numbers. 23, 48, 69. And your heading can very well become rounded turnover, probably in thousands. So data looks more simpler, because at any point you may not evaluate it at that minutest level. I mean, when you are working in crores, tens hardly matters. Right? Of course, if it is from an audit standpoint or something, probably even a rupee matters. But if the focus is on management discussion, no management can talk about how much profit they got to the nearest rupee. They only can remember up to nearest crores or nearest lakhs or something like that. So it's better to represent. Most of the time, people represent the data in this, like this itself. If the numbers are very, very high, they simply round it off to something nearest and they display the data. So probably, yeah, this also I can drag it down. But yeah, instead of dragging it down, I can even have a mechanism of double clicking. Double click also works like a drag, but only to the extent the value is present in the G column. If to whatever extent the values are present in the you see here, H column is not coming. The reason being, here there is a blank in the G column. If there is a blank in the G column, even the H column will be stopped. Double clicking. If that's the case, it's better to drag them up. At least even up to here, if I drag, and again I do the process, no issues. But again up to the next blank it will do. Right? Rather than that, if I think that there are so many blanks, it's better to, yeah. Which one? No, no. What you can do is, I got your point. Control C. You do a Control C. Then you do the complete column. You do a Control V. But the only problem here is, even here also it pays. So, I mean, you can very well, and it eats up the space also. Otherwise, you have to manually select that many columns. So, from here, you have copied it. From here, you go to Control Shift down arrow. Even this down arrow will go. So, you select that Control Shift down arrow. It goes only up to your, no, Control Shift down arrow. Now, if there are so many spaces in between, it cannot identify the last active. Okay. You copy. Okay. You copy. Come here. Wherever the cell, you actually have all values. You come to the last right arrow, then Control Shift top arrow. Do a Control V. Now the data is pasted. So typically what we are doing in this process is, we have rounded off the data, because sometimes it really doesn't make too much of sense for me to read the numbers at that layer. I want it in thousands. I want it in simple. I mean, the smaller the data looks, the better it is. So I would like to round it to these kind of stuff to analyze the data also. So that's one more benefit I can derive by going with the round formula and then doing a division by 1000 or something. Sometimes I may have to do it to the nearest lakh. Probably the traded quantities, I may want to do it to the nearest lakh. So in those kind of cases, it really helps using all these arithmetic functions, right?